Good evening. I'm Zinklea Asamoah coming to you from the NBC News headquarters in New York City. Here are some of the stories we're following on Now Tonight. Still no speaker. Congressman Kevin McCarthy inched closer towards the speakership with additional support today, but a vote has yet to produce a clear-cut winner.
And do you worry the message this might send to the rest of the country that Republicans aren't ready to govern?
No. My father always told me one thing. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Remembering January 6th, a look back at the attack on the Capitol through the words of those who were there that day.
America owes you all. I really mean this. A debt of gratitude, one we can never fully repay unless we live up to what you did.
Road to recovery. Buffalo Bills' Damar Hamlin is showing signs of improvement and even has a message for his teammates.
He made the heart symbol probably more than anything, and then he gave him a thumbs up.
And welcome back, Mr. Roker. The Today Show welcomes back Al Roker after nearly 2 months of leave. We begin tonight in legislative limbo again. Right now, we're waiting for the House to go back into session to elect a speaker. The House adjourned this afternoon so Republican leadership could whittle away at the final no vote. So far, Republican leader Kevin McCarthy has lost 13 ballots in 4 days. Today, he started seeing momentum, but not enough to break the stalemate with his opposition.
Do you think you have to vote to be elected speaker tonight?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
And you'll be able to put Rosendale and Crane?
I'll have the vote.
Well, what are you?
Why are you confident you have the vote?
Because I count.
Because you count? How many votes left do you need?
What's it going to take to get over the top here?
We'll get it done tonight.
And I want to give you a visual of what has happened this week. Here is every single one of those votes failing on the floor because there is no speaker. Cheryl Johnson, the House clerk, is still in charge of the floor. She isn't just presiding over D.C. drama. Right now, the government is not functioning at its fullest capacity. Everyone elected to the 118th Congress has not been sworn in. These are not congressmen and women. They are members-elect. So no committees are working on legislation or investigations. No laws are getting passed. None of that can happen until the Republican majority can agree on a speaker. Big stakes. So joining us now to talk about it is NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. Another night out there, Ryan. What progress have Republicans made in securing votes for Kevin McCarthy since they adjourned this afternoon?
Well, Zinkley, it's hard to get a whip count as of right this moment, but we do know that there's progress being made with those 6 holdouts to the point where some of these holdouts are basically conceding that the game is over and that at some point tonight, Kevin McCarthy will be elected the next Speaker of the House. What remains to be seen is the form and fashion in which that happens. It may be some sort of a scenario where some of these members who have described themselves as never Kevins vote present as opposed to voting for someone else or voting for him, which would reduce the number of votes that he would need to win by. Regardless, he needs to pull over somewhere in the range of 2 votes or 3 present votes in order to become the next speaker, and it seems very likely that that's going to happen when they reconvene here in a couple of hours.
So to that end, right, it's likely that it'll happen. What can you tell us about the GOP members-elect who flipped today, including Byron Donalds, who was nominated this week for Speaker?
Yeah, so I think that this group of 15 that ended up flipping today are in a bit of a different class than the remaining 6 that are still holding out. That remaining 6 has kind of a personal issue with Kevin McCarthy. They don't trust him. They don't think that he's the right man for the job. They feel he's too much of part of the Republican establishment. The other 15, their issue was about more the process of the House of Representatives, the rules that were going to govern the work that was going to be done here, the way that legislation would get to the floor, and the people that would be sitting on those committees that would decide how that legislation gets to the floor. And they basically just pressured Kevin McCarthy to give in to almost every single one of their demands, the most obvious one being that now only one member of Congress can at any time call for a vote that would essentially, that has the threat of bringing the Speaker of the House out of that position. So, Kevin McCarthy had to give up a lot to get this job, but it looks like after a lot of hand-wringing that it actually worked.
I mean, a big concession. And Ryan, we also did the math because we've been following this pretty closely. Members-elect have cast 5,632 votes so far in this race for the speakership. And Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries has gotten unanimous support from his caucus throughout. So what do Democrats on the Hill tell you about this lack of unity across the aisle?
I think it's such an important point to make, Zinkley, because the unity by the Democrats during this period of time is pretty remarkable when you take into account that they really didn't have a dog in this fight. There was no scenario in which Hakeem Jeffries was going to be elected the next speaker. And, they probably forecasted that Kevin McCarthy was ultimately going to win the job. They basically just spent these last 4 days all voting against him and forcing him to get to the point where he got all the votes he needed as a way to drive him crazy and to demonstrate what they believe will be a chaotic 2 years with Republicans in the majority. And the Democrats that I've talked to have said that if you think this is bad, just wait until there's a vote on the debt ceiling or wait until there's a vote on a spending package. And, while these Republicans may have gotten to the point where they could settle on one thing, and that is making Kevin McCarthy the Speaker of the House, when you're talking about complex spending bills, funding for Ukraine, you name it, there is going to be a lot of difficult conversations and trading that's going to have to be done, and it could lead to numerous standstills on the House side of the aisle as this Congress moves forward.
So much to watch for. And briefly, I want to ask you, of course, about the people in charge of the House right now. Here is Congressman Steve Scalise just before asking to adjourn for the afternoon. Let's take a listen.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana rise?
Madam Clerk, with great appreciation for the job that you and your staff have been doing.
We love a moment of appreciation. So what can you tell us about the lift this clerk and staff have handled this week?
Zinkley, we that are here every day know just how impressive the professional staff on both the House and Senate are in kind of keeping the train moving on a day-to-day basis. They have more institutional knowledge than any of the people that are elected to the office, and they all do it in such an unbelievably nonpartisan fashion. It's really just about getting the job done. And here you have the clerk who was thrust into this national spotlight in a very demanding, intense situation, who performed under enormous grace. She at many times had to call the House to order, prevent them from talking, had to almost yell at them at times where they were talking about things from the lecterns that they were not supposed to be talking about. It really was a remarkable job. They don't get enough credit, and I was pleased to see the Majority Leader Steve Scalise take the time to thank them for the work that they've done, because those of us that are here every day know that it's not an easy job.
Absolutely, and the work continues next week. NBC's Ryan Nobles, thank you so much. And now let's bring in former Republican Congressman Carlos Curbelo. He is an NBC News political analyst. So thank you so much for joining us. A busy week. So I just want to start plainly. What has it been like watching 13 failed votes for Speaker?
Well, thank you, and it's good to be with you. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to track everything that's happening on the Hill right now. There's a lot going on. Look, this has been historic. It's been very difficult for House Republicans. For years, there's been a culture in the House Republican Conference where a small minority tries to impose their will. And that's what we've been witnessing here since Monday of this week. 20 members trying to impose their will on 200 plus Republican members, not to mention the rest of the House of Representatives, the 212 Democrats. Kevin McCarthy believes that he's got the votes locked down, that he has a clear path now to the speakership. The next challenge after that, which is what I'm trying to follow right now, is what's going to happen with the rules package. In order for the House to be constituted, you don't just need to elect a speaker, but you need to pass a rules package to figure out how the House is actually going to operate. And we're already seeing some dissension from Republicans. Tony Gonzalez, who put out a tweet saying that he would not be supporting the rules package. So Kevin McCarthy's got his own personal hurdle to clear, but then House Republicans have to clear another hurdle, which is to get the necessary votes to pass a rules package.
And I mean, we've talked a lot about the votes, right? But obviously, this is impacting the role, the speakership itself. What impact do you think all of these failed votes are going to have on the power and the effectiveness of the speakership?
Well, without question, Kevin McCarthy is not going into this position from a position of strength. And this could be a indication of what is going to happen in the House over the next 2 years every time there's a controversial vote. With this concession to the Freedom Caucus to allow a single member of the House to file a motion to vacate the chair, essentially to call for a vote of no confidence on the Speaker, it means that we could see a repeat of this whole spectacle that we've witnessed this week any time that one of these more extremist members in the House Republican Conference believes that either McCarthy's not keeping his word or that McCarthy's negotiating too much with the Senate or with Democrats. Whatever the case may be, McCarthy has now opened himself up to this motion to vacate the chair, which is what drove John Boehner out of the U.S. House of Representatives in 2015, this threat from this same group of legislators. So there are a lot of more questions than answers as we go into tonight. And even if we do get a speaker tonight, we still don't know what these next 2 years are going to look like, how the House is going to operate, and how we're going to do basic things like funding the government and making sure the United States can meet its debt obligations.
We're definitely holding our breath on all of that. Former Congressman Carlos Curbelo, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Tonight, the White House is touting December's jobs numbers. The Labor Department reported that 223,000 new jobs were created last month, beating economists' expectations. The unemployment rate fell to 3.5%, matching its lowest rate in half a century. In a statement, President Biden wrote, "We have more work to do and we may face setbacks along the way, but it is clear that my economic strategy of growing the economy from the bottom up and middle out is working." With me now to talk about this is NBC News business and data reporter Brian Chung. Brian, good to see you. I know a busy day. So how do these numbers compare to past numbers, and what were we expecting?
Well, they compare pretty much in line, and it shows that the overall jobs market remains strong in America. As you mentioned, the unemployment rate is low, but I want to highlight just the job gains that we saw. In December, we added 223,000. That is a little bit of a slower pace than the 256,000 that we saw in November. This actually was downgrade, or rather rise down after the fact. But for what it's worth, above 200,000 is pretty much a strong sign of a jobs market, especially when you consider that the unemployment rate also fell to 3.5%, which matches, by the way, levels we haven't seen since 1969.
So pretty impressive. Of course, if we're talking about jobs, we have to talk about wages, right? I think everyone's like, well, how does this impact me and my salary? So are we seeing wages keep up with inflation? What are those numbers looking like?
Yeah, the short answer is unfortunately no. And when we take a look at the wage growth story, if we're looking at November of 2022 to November of 2021, people got paid 4.8% more. In December, again, to December of the prior year, that actually slowed to 4.6%. Now, for what it's worth right now, prices are 7.1% more expensive than they were this time last year. So very quick arithmetic shows you that the wage gains are not keeping up with how much more expensive everything is getting across the board. But is this a sign that maybe this number is going to come down? If wage growth goes down, maybe overall inflation goes down, that could be a good thing. But again, it's definitely not a situation that American families are feeling good about right now.
Right. So fingers crossed that inflation kind of matches those numbers that we're seeing, but also clearly it's not keeping up with inflation, as you just said. And the report also means that 4.5 million, with an M, jobs were created in 2022. Which sectors, which industries are we seeing this in, and what might it mean? I mean, we're at the start of a new year, so what does it mean for us moving forward?
Yeah, well, the big sector that saw a lot of job gains was leisure and hospitality, and we saw that in the December report as well. This is just in between November and December, but leisure and hospitality, bars and restaurants essentially, adding about 67,000 jobs in the month. But not all of the industries are seeing that type of gain. So professional and business services, this is actually pretty interesting because it includes the tech industry. And we've heard about layoffs from the likes of just Amazon today decreasing. So actually that category falling by about 6,000. And then employment services, this is super fascinating. This is headhunters and then also basically providers of financial finding temporary help for a lot of employers, actually contracting by about 40,000 in the month.
Wow.
This might tell you, as a leading indicator, that in future months there might be less appetite, fewer appetite for jobs and hiring in the future. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. Some of that could be seasonal, though. We know a lot of holiday, retail areas, they're trying to hire a lot of people, so maybe that's part of it, but we'll have to see in the coming months.
Time will tell. Super fascinating. NBC's Brian Chung, thank you so much. And turning overseas, the Biden administration announced a new round of aid to Ukraine today. It amounts to nearly $3 billion, and it includes Bradley fighting vehicles, which the U.S. previously was apprehensive to provide. The announcement was made in concert with Germany, which is also upping its support. This comes after a highly publicized and now successful visit to the U.S. from Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. He pleaded with Congress for additional support just over 2 weeks ago. NBC's Courtney Cube has more. Courtney?
And you remember, Zinkley, during that visit here to D.C. by President Zelensky in December, he was extremely grateful to the United States for all of the help and aid that they've provided since the invasion in Ukraine, but he acknowledged he was going to continue to ask for more in the coming weeks and months. Well, he's getting us some of that today with this enormous $3 billion aid package announced by the White House today. It includes these Bradley fighting vehicles. Now, they look like tanks, they sort of act like tanks, but they're actually fighting vehicles, and what they are is tank killers. They're equipped with these TOW anti-tank missiles, and these, unlike a tank, can actually carry personnel, troops, inside of them. They are very maneuverable, and they also have a gun on them that the Biden administration is providing 250,000 rounds for as part of this package. It will take a couple of weeks for the Ukrainian military to get trained up on these new vehicles, but they should have them, according to administration officials, in time for any kind of a spring offensive in Ukraine. Now, in addition to the Bradleys, the U.S. is also providing hundreds of other vehicles as part of this package. MRAPs, which are mine-resistant vehicles, they protect against IEDs or roadside bombs. There's been a lot of talk that the Russians have been mining some of the areas along the front line, so that would protect Ukrainian troops against that. Also, Humvees and other vehicles. In addition to that, I mentioned the 250,000 rounds for the Bradleys. The U.S. is providing about 160,000 more artillery rounds and more howitzers and HIMARS to fire them from. This is another indication that the U.S. is helping the Ukrainians get prepared for a potential offensive or counteroffensive to counter any coming Russian offensive. The reality is, while there has been a lot of speculation that the fighting would slow down during the winter months, it has remained extremely fierce fighting in the eastern part of the country, in the Donetsk area. And U.S. officials who I speak with do not expect that to slow down anytime soon. Sinclair?
Courtney Cube, thank you so much. And major movement tonight in the treatment for Alzheimer's. We'll take a look at a newly approved drug that could help in the early stages of the disease. But it comes with some pretty serious side effects. Now tonight is just getting started. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Zinkley Asamoah. We've got some big news out of the FDA. The agency just approved a new drug to use in the fight against Alzheimer's. It's called Leqembi, and clinical trials have shown it could modestly slow cognitive decline in the early stages of illness. We should note that it is not a cure and may also carry safety risks, according to the company's phase 3 trial data. Still, in context, this is pretty promising news for a lot of people. 1 in 9 Americans over the age of 65 suffer from the irreversible progressive brain disorder. Joining us to talk about this is NBC News medical fellow Dr. Akshay Shayal. Thank you so much for being here. So I want to start with something the FDA said. It said this treatment option is the latest therapy to target and affect the underlying disease process of Alzheimer's instead of only treating the symptoms of the disease. So, Dr. Shayal, what is currently available when it comes to Alzheimer's, and how is this different?
So, good evening, Sinclair. You know, to really understand this, I just want to give some background on what we think might be the leading cause of Alzheimer's. And so when we talk about our brains, we have these neural connections between the cells in our brain. And what we think happens with Alzheimer's is we develop these plaques. These little plaques in the brain that cause disruptions in how our cells talk to each other. And it's the thought that those plaques are what's causing the memory loss and all the devastating symptoms of Alzheimer's. Now, the problem is the current treatments we have for Alzheimer's don't address those plaques. They're almost like Band-Aids. They treat the symptoms of Alzheimer's and not so well well, I might add. So with this one, this is a monoclonal antibody that actually targets those plaques and removes them from the brain. So when you think about monoclonal antibodies, we've talked a lot about with COVID, but instead of binding to a virus, this one is binding to the plaques and taking them out of the brain. And so, we have data now from a phase 3 trial of almost 2,000 people showing that those who took this drug, it's an IV drug you take every 2 weeks, it's not a pill, and those who took it for 18 months saw about a 27% reduction in what we say cognitive decline. Now, this was measured in a survey. It's really unclear, what does this mean for the average person? Does this mean, I could be driving for 6 months or more to a year? Does it mean I could, write my checkbook for 6 months or more to a year? So those are the things we really need answers on going forward.
So that seems pretty exciting, pretty promising, but of course there are some risks. Can you talk to us about those?
Yeah, there's two big risks. There's with the side effects we saw in the trial, it's brain bleeding and brain swelling. And now those sound really serious, and they did occur, more often than the placebo group. So we still are learning more about what causes them. But Sinclair, like everything in medicine, there are risks and benefits. So this drug is going to be a really personal question between you and your doctor. Do the risks outweigh or do the benefits outweigh the risks? I just want to add, the other risk is really to your bank account. We're talking about over $25,000 a year to get this drug. So the big thing we're all watching for now, will Medicare cover this? Will private insurances cover this? Because there is some uncertainty there. So we're going to be watching for that in the months coming.
And it's not lost on me that we're talking about this, and the Alzheimer's Association says that the rate of Alzheimer's in Americans is likely to increase over time. So what does this all mean? What could this mean?
Yeah, CDC, Alzheimer's Association are all projecting this in the years going forward. We have about 6.5 million Americans over the age of 65 living with Alzheimer's now, projected to increase, basically double to 13 million by 2050. And so what's behind this increase? There's a couple things. One, as our lifespans are getting better, as medicine is improving, we're living longer, we're more likely to get diagnosed with Alzheimer's just because it's a disease of older age. But the other thing is really lifestyle. It's rates of obesity, rates of chronic disease like high blood pressure. Those are all risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, and it's why we're unfortunately seeing health disparities here where Black and brown Americans are projected to have a greater increase in Alzheimer's going forward.
Showing the interconnectedness of it all, right? Health equity, it matters.
Exactly.
Dr. Akshay Syal, thank you so much.
Anytime.
And after the break, more of the top stories we're following this hour, including the future of Title 42. The Supreme Court is getting involved in the Trump-era immigration policy. Plus, that nasty weather on the West Coast just will not go away. We have the forecast. And after a terrifying week, today is a joyous one for the Buffalo Bills. We have the latest on Damar Hamlin's recovery. It's time now for some of the big headlines we're watching on Now Tonight. The Supreme Court now has a date set for its hearing on Title 42. On March 1st, the court will hear oral arguments over the controversial immigration policy. Other high-profile cases, like student loan forgiveness, will come just days before as part of the same court session. In South Florida, at least 10 people were hurt in a shooting outside a Miami Gardens restaurant. This happened during what witnesses say was a music video shoot for rapper French Montana. Video shows the rapper sitting in a car outside before shots were fired. Police say the whole thing started with a fight at a nearby KFC, but then spilled over to the restaurant. The conditions of the people hurt are still unknown, but no deaths were reported. Real Housewives star Jen Shah was sentenced to 6.5 years in prison today. This summer, Shah pleaded guilty to wire fraud charges over her role in a telemarketing scheme. Today in court, she apologized, saying she, quote, hurt innocent people. Shah will have to surrender to federal prison next month. And check this out. New photos of a nearly century-old shipwreck in Michigan reveal a piece of history from the Prohibition era. This 200-foot barge, still mostly intact, was at one point used by the gangster Al Capone as a floating speakeasy. It sank on Lake Charlevoix in 1932. And get those lotto tickets ready. A huge Mega Millions prize of nearly $1 billion is up for grabs tonight. It's the 6th largest jackpot ever in U.S. history, but if no one wins tonight, another drawing will happen next Tuesday. And the news keeps getting better for Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin. The 24-year-old is off his breathing tube and speaking with his family. He also had a chance to see his teammates via FaceTime. Here's how that went.
The thing that makes me laugh is he did this to the guys, right away. And he flexed, flexed on him, I guess. He made the heart symbol probably more than anything. And then he gave him a thumbs up.
NBC News correspondent Jay Gray is live in Cincinnati with more. Jay, this is a pretty remarkable turnaround from Monday night. What more can you tell us about Damar's progress?
Yeah, Clay, I mean, let's put this in perspective real quick. This is a guy, a 24-year-old athlete who was laying on the turf motionless Monday night. His heart stopped beating. He wasn't breathing, obviously. And now he's calling his team during their morning meeting here and surprising those players who had watched him collapse there. It is astonishing. And even the medical team here is saying that it's amazing how fast he has turned a corner and how rapidly he is starting to recover. So great news all the way around here. They are quick to remind you that he is still in recovery, that all of this good news is simply an update. It's not the end of what's going on. So he's still got some work to do here. But we do know that he's been able to, as you talk about, leave the ventilator, breathe on his own. That was a huge step in this recovery process. And now they've got to build up his strength. So he'll be going through some rehab here and will continue once he leaves the hospital. They won't give specifics on when they think that will be. What the team here has said, the critical care team, is that they're taking this day by day. And so far, each day has gotten better and better. But they're not looking ahead. They want to make sure that they go through this and get him back to a point, they say, where he was before all of this happened. So they're very excited about that prospect.
And Jay, I know Bills coach Sean McDermott is putting a big spotlight on the trainer who he says saved Hamlin's life by performing CPR on the field. Tell us a bit about him.
That's a great story, Clay. His name is Denny Kellington. He's an assistant trainer with the Bills, has been for several years, real close with a lot of the players. And they said that he is the one who jumped into action. He's the one that rushed out on the field less than a minute after Hamlin collapsed and began CPR. He's getting praise from his coach, calling him a hero, who says that he saved Hamlin's life. But that's echoed by the critical care team here. They have gone out of their way to applaud him and the other medics who were on the scene at the stadium, saying this would be a much different story had he not jumped in there and taken control. And that's exactly what he did. Started CPR, started telling everyone else what needed to be done, eventually intubating him. He had a breathing tube there, and they were giving him oxygen. And again, that's what the doctors here say was really the impetus for him recovering so strongly and so quickly, was that rapid response once he collapsed.
I mean, really incredible first response right there. And Jay, I know we also got an update from the NFL, sort of pivoting from the medical side, but we got an update about the final weekend of the season to the sports and beyond. So what's the big plan for the watchers out there?
Yeah, and how amazing is that? It really shows how this has changed. We weren't thinking at all about football even a day ago, and now we're talking about moving forward with football, and so are the players, by the way, which is just remarkable when you stop and think about it. What's going to happen here is they're not going to replay this game. This game is over. It's not going to be a part of this season. So if they end up in the playoffs, and both of these teams will end up in the playoffs, if they have played one less game than their opponent, they will play at a neutral site because they have one less game, and so we don't know what would have happened had they played out the whole season. They also have announced today that there will be some tributes honoring not only Hamlin this weekend, but also those medical teams that have helped to save his life. There will be a moment of support, not silence, but support for Hamlin and those doctors and nurses and medics at the stadium before every NFL game this weekend. We also know that his team will be wearing his number 3 on a patch on their uniforms.
Well, games aside, I think we hope and are rooting for Hamlin and hope he continues to win in all of this.
Yeah.
Jake Gray, thank you so much. And now to a frightening story out of Virginia. A 6-year-old boy is in custody after shooting a teacher today in the town of Newport News. According to police, the child and teacher knew each other and were apparently alone in a first-grade classroom when he shot her. Thankfully, no students were harmed, but the teacher is seriously hurt and remains hospitalized with life-threatening injuries. At this time, it's still unclear where this young boy got the weapon. The investigation is ongoing. Now for the forecast. There is snow and rain falling across parts of New England and another powerful round of storms coming for the West Coast. NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns is here with the weekend forecast. What should we be watching for?
Well, of course, everything with the West, but I don't want to be so negative and talk about all the destruction that's possibly going to come and stuff. So let's talk about the positive aspects of the West Coast getting all of these storms. Remember, we've been begging for storms. I mean, it's been 20 years in general. There's been different periods. We've had some wet years in between, but this mega drought goes back 2 decades. So the water year starts in November. So this was the drought map starting November 1st. And you notice that areas of California, especially in the valley areas here in the southern half of the state near Fresno, was in exceptional drought. So that was 74% of the West. So we've had a bunch of storms. How much have we improved things? So this was just issued this week. And you notice the exceptional drought went away. That's good. But we still have extreme drought conditions in a good portion of the state. And we went from 77% of the West being in drought to 62%. Baby steps is what this is. Even though we're getting these big, powerful storms, we're just so far behind that it's going to take dozens of these storms, not just this year, but even in the years to come. So we do have more rain in Northern California. This is not going to cause a lot of problems, no destruction like we had with the big storm that we dealt with yesterday. But as we go out further into the Pacific, we have 3 storms lined up. So we have the one that we're dealing with tonight, and that's even going to bring rain to the Pacific Northwest and to Northern California. Storm 2 comes in Saturday, especially Saturday night. This one's going to have some heavy rain with it. This will have some mountain snow, gusty winds, but I don't think we're going to have major issues. It's Storm 3 that I'm concerned with. And it's just a baby right now, but this has plenty of time to get much more powerful and bigger. This comes in Monday, Tuesday to the West Coast. This will be another atmospheric river event. So that means lots of moisture available, lots of rain, heavy snow in the mountains, high winds. And this could be an issue because we're going to have all these storms before it. Rivers are already high, ground's already saturated. So when it pours Monday and Tuesday, all of that water is going to head into the rivers quickly. And then the rivers are going to come way up. So here's the rainfall forecast. This is up for the next 7 days. That's 7 to 10 inches in the mountains north of Sacramento, all the way north of San Francisco, all the way through Northern California. And all of this will feed down into areas such as the Sacramento River. I bring that up because the river forecast is now to hit record flood stage on Monday night. And that would top the floods of 1997 and 1996. And both of those were billion-dollar weather disasters. So when we saw that forecast today, we were like, whoa, so that's just a forecast. We don't know if that river level is going to be reached, but it's a possibility. So that means people have to pay close attention to this forecast and make preparations. And that's why we have flood watches that are up not just for this weekend, all the way out through Wednesday of next week for much of the state of California, especially the central and northern portions of the state. So let's get to your weekend forecast. There are other concerns, nothing like what I just mentioned in the West, but we are on Saturday. Snow showers, Great Lakes. We're going to see some evening storms here. So Houston up to Shreveport. Nothing that's going to ruin your plans. This is a big weekend. We had Christmas, then we had New Year's. So, there's a lot of errands to be done, a lot of catch up from the last couple of weekends. And on Sunday, a little bit of that wet weather there in the Ohio Valley. But all eyes in Clay, of course, is going to be on what could happen in California to start next week.
I mean, you talked about the potential for the system getting overwhelmed. Can California reservoirs handle this amount of water in the system?
Reservoirs can, because they've been so emptied. It's the rivers and the levee systems that'll be tested. If the levees hold, it'll be fine. We'll see how much they improved in the last 25 years since the last time when a lot of them broke.
Oh, time will tell. Bill Cairns, thank you so much. Now, let's talk tech. Tens of thousands are pouring into Las Vegas to get a look at the future of big tech, all at the 2023 Consumer Electronics Show. And while that includes artificial intelligence and robot cars, an unexpected theme is standing out: tech growth in big agriculture. Here's NBC News technology correspondent Jake Ward.
The Consumer Electronics Show here in Las Vegas has traditionally been a place where you forget about earthly concerns. You lose yourself in the futuristic prototypes and gizmos that will entertain you, distract you. But this year's event is full of amazing new inventions that will revolutionize some of the fundamentals of our lives.
Wow!
The Consumer Electronics Show is usually a place for far-out gadgets.
I'm going to get 2 tomorrow.
But in the center of the fancy new hall this year, among robot arms and holograms, crowds gathered around this 18-ton piece of farming equipment, John Deere's autonomous sprayer. You just turn it loose, and it drives along, spots and kills weeds. No driver, no remote control.
It would take 6,000 people to cover the same amount of ground.
Farming is under intense pressure in the United States. Just ask Travis Center. John Deere brought him here from his farm in Arkansas.
People are moving away from the rural areas, and so you don't have that labor force that you had.
Not only that, Travis is a young farmer at 44. The average age in the U.S. is 57 for farmers, and as they retire, fewer are replacing them. Combine that with billions more people on a warming planet and demand for food forecast to rise by 70 to 100%, we have a problem.
You have less land, more population, more demand for food. We believe technology is the solution to solving that problem.
The concept here is that a family of 4 could conceivably run an entire farm using a fleet of robots like this.
The Consumer Electronics Show is, in fact, full of agriculture technology. Deere showed us a system that fires 30 seeds into the ground a second and fertilizes each one individually.
This technology, by dosing the seed exactly with the amount it needs, saves over 60% or 93 million gallons of nitrogen.
Leave it to a robot and fields may not even need to be planted in rows any longer.
We've seen a ton of changes over the last 186 years, so let your mind wander and it could happen.
Now, of course, it remains to be seen whether a small family farm could ever afford something like this. John Deere, of course, says that it will also be selling equipment that can be bolted on to an existing sprayer system. But will the need to go robotic, trigger a wave of acquisitions and mergers? Will we see some sort of consolidation in farming when everybody has to be able to afford something like this? All of that remains to be seen. But for the moment, it looks as if the future of food could truly depend on robots.
NBC's Jake Ward, thank you so much. An attack on the Capitol 2 years later. A look back at the January 6th insurrection from the people who witnessed it firsthand. Now Tonight continues next. Today marks 2 years since rioters stormed the U.S. Capitol in an attempt to stop the certification of the 2020 election. President Biden marked the occasion today at the White House with Capitol Police, first responders, and their families.
To all of you, I know this honor is bittersweet. On that day, more than 140 law enforcement officials suffered physical injuries, and untold numbers are suffering from psychological toll of that day as well. PSD doesn't only occur in a military battlefield. Others are gone forever. All the families who have lost someone. My heart aches for you, and I want to thank you for having the courage to be here today so the rest of America can know what your kin did.
Dramatic televised hearings of the appointed House committee showed politicians across party lines seeking accountability for the Capitol attack. And one NBC producer and photographer, Frank Thorpe, has been there to document the historic hearings. Here's a look back on key figures of the investigation through Thorpe's lens.
Since I started speaking publicly and being told that I'm a crisis actor, that I'm exaggerating, that I'm doing this for fame, I spent almost 5 hours battling this group of people here in the Capitol, not only myself, but my colleagues as well. The mere breach to the Capitol by our own citizens is incomprehensible to me. The threats to our democracy into this building had only increased since January 6th. What we were suggested that day was like something from a medieval battle. We fought hand to hand, inch by inch. The rioters were shouting, "Trump, send us. Pick the right side. We want Trump."
Need to have 30,000 guns.
It's still hard to believe that it really happened. Disagree, just go attack the Capitol and just get a new president. Like, it's like the strongest wins, not the votes anymore. Whoever can beat you up. Look at the precedent that would have set. This is our country. This is where we're at. And everybody sees these 4 officers, but there were hundreds of people that day, and someone gave the ultimate sacrifice. They're no longer with us. To the rioters, the insurrectionists, and the terrorists of that day, democracy is bigger than any one person and any one party. You all tried to disrupt democracy that day, and you all failed.
You know, the founding fathers seem to operate under that same premise that, you know, there's this like honor code that goes along with our democratic republic. And up until recently, nobody was willing to exploit it to the extent that Trump and his administration did. You know, you would have people that would come along throughout our history that would do that, but then they would be ostracized. There's going to be political leaders who stoke the lies, and they continue to do that today. But now they've got to confront my body-worn camera footage.
I got you, Mike. That's my hand on your gun.
You know, having been pulled out into the crowd, beaten, I mean, you see me like in the most vulnerable moment of my entire life. That's not how I want to be remembered. But I understand the significance of it, and I'm going to put it to good use.
I know we've watched a lot of difficult video, but I hope it's okay with you if I show a brief video of what Officer Hodges experienced that day.
Two sides were at a stalemate at a metal door frame that sat in the middle of the hallway. My arms were pinned and effectively useless, trapped against either the shield on my left or the door frame on my right. Directly in front of me, a man seized the opportunity of my vulnerability, grabbed the front of my gas mask, and used it to beat my head against the door. A mob of terrorists were coordinating their efforts now, shouting heave, ho, as they synchronized, pushing their weight forward, crushing me further against the metal door frame. I'm just a beat cop, so most of the time I just stop people from hitting each other and, you know, stop people from stealing, but this is the foundation of our country, the foundation of its government, and if we can't preserve that, then what's the point? How often does someone like me get a chance to put their finger on the scale of history and be an honest primary source and let everyone know what really happened, especially when it's bizarrely controversial?
My name is Ruby Freeman. I've always believed that when God says that he'll make your name great, but this is not the way it was supposed to be.
At least 18,000, that's on tape. We had them counted very painstakingly. 18,000 voters having to do with Ruby Freeman. She's a vote scammer, a professional vote scammer and hustler.
I get nervous when I bump into someone I know in the grocery store who says my name. I've lost my sense of security, all because a group of people, starting with number 45 and his ally, Rudy Giuliani, decided to scapegoat me and my daughter, Shay.
Yes, a lot of threats, wishing death upon me, telling me that, you know, I'll be in jail with my mother, and saying things like, be glad it's 2020 and not 1920.
I kept hoping all day that President Trump would meet the moment, and time again, he continued to fail. And I don't think he grasped, you know, the gravity of the situation, or he just didn't care because he enjoyed what he was seeing.
If the president had wanted to make a statement and address the American people, he could have been on camera almost instantly.
And so I was just disappointed because this is someone that I believed in, someone that I put my faith in and, you know, went to work for as a spokesperson. As a spokesperson, your job is to literally defend, you know, everything that your principal says and does. And his actions that day were just indefensible to me. If, you know, those above me in higher ranking positions at the White House weren't willing to do what was right and testify under oath the truth of what happened in the lead up to January 6th and on that day, then I knew that I needed to step up, and it was encouraging to see others like, Cassidy Hutchinson step up. All the women who testified, knowing that, it was at risk of their careers, at risk of their own personal safety. But yeah, I think at a certain point you kind of have to put your own politics aside and just do what you think is right for the country.
It's amazing to me that people ask me about my legacy. I'm nobody. I don't have a big tower. I didn't stop a world war. I'm certainly no bastion of perfection. I do care what people think until I know how they think. So out of all this, the president calling me names, I just thought, how pathetic is that? He's got to call me a liar? He was on the same phone call I was. If anybody has a tape, it should be the White House. Play that sucker. I'd be interested to hear how I heard that conversation. It's worth it. It's worth somebody looking up there and seeing my name and saying, he's a stand-up guy. And I would love to live and be that.
It is the new pattern, or a pattern in our lives, to worry what will happen on Saturdays, because we have various groups come by, and I don't know if I should name groups, but there was one gentleman that had the 3 bars on his chest, and he had a pistol and was threatening my neighbor, not with the pistol, but just vocally. When I saw the gun, I knew I had to get close.
That's the danger in all this. It doesn't take much for somebody to do something stupid, really unhinged, to put everything at risk. That's where I think civil wars start. One shot, one guy, one prince in Serbia, and you got a war.
Our thanks to Frank Thorpe for that. And tonight, Hallie Jackson hosts a special on the January 6th committee report and the key moments from the investigation. That airs tonight at 9 p.m. right here on NBC News Now. Now, guess who is back in your neck of the woods? Mr. Al Roker, back at work on the Today Show.
My heart is just bursting. I'm just so thrilled to see all of you and all the crew and everybody. And just, right now I'm running on adrenaline. So yeah. I'm just thrilled to be here.
And before we go, it's been a special day here at NBC. Someone we deeply care about made a triumphant return to Studio 1A. The beloved Al Roker is back after a 2-month hiatus due to a serious medical crisis. Al made a Today Show appearance this morning, then later sat down with Lester Holt to discuss his ordeal and recovery. Take a look.
Man, it is good to have you back.
Thanks, Lester. It's good to see you.
I hope you were feeling the love today, not only from your colleagues, but the fans who are outside at the Today Show.
Yeah, I mean, it really is one of those things where you realize how fortunate you are. You could feel the love, you could feel the prayers, the well wishes, because this was a tough go. And my family, starting off with my wife, Deborah, really helped me through this. But everybody else was helping hold us up as well.
Your doctor called it a life-threatening experience, that they were extraordinarily concerned about you. Did you appreciate how bad a shape you were in?
No, I had no idea, to be honest.
I guess that's good.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss. Deborah shouldered that burden, kind of kept me shielded. I think if maybe I'd known how bad it was, it might have been a little different.
In early November, Al was suffering from severe stomach pains. Scans revealed internal bleeding, and one unexpectedly showed blood clots in his lungs. Al returned home for Thanksgiving, but was rushed back to the hospital soon after. At this point, this is a medical mystery. They really don't know what the root of this is.
We were playing medical whack-a-mole, trying to figure out, is it diverticulitis? Is it pancreatitis? And finally, they said, we have to go in. They were expecting maybe a 2-hour operation, and it ended up being 7 hours because they had to get rid of a couple of bleeding ulcers. They had to resection my colon. They had to remove my gallbladder. It was like buy one, get 4 free.
We deal in this business with people in adversity, but you and I have traveled to disaster scenes. Do you have a new appreciation for those situations and how people deal with them?
Oh, absolutely. And what I've come away from this is just an abject sense of gratitude. Great medical care. I had a loving wife. I had a great family. I had the family of our NBC News people. And a lot of people go through a lot worse with far less.
So what's the road to recovery look like for you?
I'm doing physical therapy every day. This is something I never thought I would say in my adult life. I'm trying to gain some weight. I feel stronger every day, and that's the goal. And I think this time of year is the time of rebirth and renewal. Everybody's, getting a fresh start, and this is my fresh start.
Lester, thank you. And Al, we're so glad you have a fresh start. That does it for us at Now Tonight. I'm Zinklea Samoa. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.